but it was given 40.
It was given 40.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And
We'll
there
check.
was one doubt I had.
Mm-hmm.
The question was about the Lexer.
Mm-hmm.
So in that question, I didn't understand the last option, which was about the section 3.1.4.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want that so you could discuss in the class that
Sure.
question.
We'll do that. Yeah, Vishav says that Kairos answer should be 2. Yeah, so that last pause, first pause, Sarthak also wrote to me that the answer should have been 2, the difference between the two sets, 4 minus 2. So that seems to be correct. The answer that is already there in the quiz, that is wrong, which was given as 0. So I confirmed that that is a problem. There is another problem, but let's discuss that. I didn't see the correction mail till after the quiz. What does that mean? Vishav and Nishchit, correction mail meaning?
I think about the while question.
Oh, I see, I see, I see, I see, I see, I see. Okay, okay, okay. I don't know how to handle this, but okay, we'll see. I thought that we also discussed this in the chat box, but anyway, some of you were there. Okay, we'll see. All right, so I hope the screen is visible. Is it okay if I continue using the headphone so that you can ask anytime, discuss anytime?
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So the questions might have appeared in different orders, but let's go in some order here. So we have this syntax tree, and the number of nullable nodes in the syntax tree is going to be that since this is a star, I think the mouse will not be accessible now. Okay, so a star, and that means that that star is definitely nullable. And so these two stars are nullable, and that is the left hand side of dot, that is node number 8. Sorry, the two sides of that dot, and therefore since both are nullable, therefore 8 becomes nullable. And as far as 9 is concerned, the left hand side is nullable, but the right hand side is not. That is, or is not nullable, and therefore these will be 3 nodes which are nullable. Is that correct? Anybody has any issues with that? Okay, so let's move ahead to the next question. Okay, so here was the grammar, and I0 was the closure, and the initial state was definitely s deriving dot xy, and that is going to add all the uh, items which are non-kernel items starting from s into this. And therefore there will be x deriving 2 productions, and then yeah, that's it. So that is going to be the 2 productions which are going to be there. There won't be any production starting from y. At this stage on I0 on less than, which is going to be this x deriving less than y star, that is going to, just a minute, somebody is joining. Yeah. So on that less than, we are going to definitely go from x deriving dot less than y star to x deriving less than dot y star, and that means that we will have to include the item the production starting from capital Y. So both of these productions in the which are deriving from y, those need to be added. Right? So the highlighted one is the first one, then these two are going to be the 2 additional. At this stage, we are going to have dot sx, and that is going to add dot xy and x also. Those will be additional 2. And then since it is dot xy, we will have to add dot less than y star and dot y also to the item set. So I think in total there might be 7 or so in the state. Is that reasonable? Any problems with that? Do your answers on? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I have just for now not enabled it, but I'll do that because I think there are a couple of corrections which I'll do and then allow everyone to see your own marks later. Not right now. Okay, so let's move on to the third one. Okay, so this was another grammar which is quite similar to our if-else grammar. So I think that you must have found very easily. So ABC followed by X and ABC followed by X as well as DX, right? So that is very similar to our if-else grammar, and therefore the grammar is ambiguous and right recursive. Right, so you could easily discard a lot of options. So grammar is ambiguous and left recursive. These two could be removed easily. But then there were issues with respect to because of multiple answers being marked. So the grammar is unambiguous. Definitely this is opposite, so that should not be marked. The grammar is CLR1. No, it doesn't turn out to be CLR1. As we saw, it's an ambiguous grammar, and therefore our CLR1 is unable to parse it, and therefore it is, well, that was just to give you some thought, but it doesn't turn out to be LL2 also. Even if you have second follow, for example, you will still find it difficult. SLR2, it doesn't turn out to be SLR2 also. The reason being that whatever are the two terminals which can come after this X, those also could be common, right? And therefore it does not turn out to be SLR2 also. Any questions on this one? So there is actually, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Can an ambiguous grammar be SLRK?
Can an ambiguous grammar be SLRK? So we say that it is SLRK provided it is not ambiguous with respect to that K. Right? So the grammar is with respect to a particular, I mean, we usually have kind of one-to-one matching with respect to the parser and the grammar. Right? So if as soon as we say that the grammar is ambiguous, right, it cannot be in any of these K, that is correct. However, we could as well say that the grammar is ambiguous with respect to CLR1, right? Whereas it is not ambiguous with respect to CLR2. Right? So that is still possible.
Okay, sir. And if the grammar is ambiguous, can it be LLK?
No, it cannot be LLK.
Okay.
Yeah. Anishwar says, okay, how, no, Kairav says, how to check proof if a grammar is LL2. Again, in the LL2 part, we'll have to talk in terms of the two follows after each non-terminal, right? And if there is distinction between the two, then we can say that an ambiguous grammar, yeah. So we say that grammar is ambiguous if it cannot be parsed by any of the K lookaheads, right? However, the term can also be used with respect to a particular K. That is, we can say that this particular grammar cannot be, this particular grammar is ambiguous with respect to CLR1 or LL1, but it is parsable with CLR2 or LL2, like that we can say. Because the language per se might not be ambiguous, that gets generated.
Sir,
Yeah.
Continuing on this route, in one of the labs, we wrote the grammar for an expression, right? And YAG didn't complain. So why was that the case? We wrote expression plus expression, which is ambiguous.
Right.
So why didn't YAG complain there?
We probably added some precedence or something with respect.
Okay, yeah, right. Sorry.
Yeah. So when we are adding these additional kind of clauses with respect to precedence, etc., that goes beyond the grammar. That is something which the YAC is providing, which is not part of the context-free part. If we can remodify the grammar and keep it context-free, but the ambiguity gets removed, then we say that the language generated by the grammar is the language generated is not ambiguous.
Sir,
Yeah,
just to
that-
clarify, if the language is inherently ambiguous, so we cannot use any parsing technique to parse that language, right?
any LL and LR parsing techniques.
LL and LR.
Yeah, I don't know of the others. That's why I'm just clarifying with this. But yeah, I don't know if there are any other additional methods which one can use. Maybe there are, for example, people say that there are some ant-LR parsers and so on, which are more powerful and so on. But anyway, so as far as LL and LR parsers are concerned, we are not able to parse using that. I mean, I would imagine that even ant-LR parsers will not be able to do that. So that's what we call as ambiguous. But only because the grammar is ambiguous doesn't mean that the language generated is ambiguous.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, in recursive descent parsing, if we try out all the productions, then we can parse a ambiguous grammar, right? Without using any prediction.
Yes, with backtracking, yes. With backtracking, you will be able to. That is correct.
Sir,
So that's a good point. Yeah, just a minute, Venkat. I'll just elaborate on that. So with backtrack, we said that all these are using this K look ahead, 1, 2, 3, K, etc. That means that we are not going back, right? So therefore, yeah, as Ravi has clearly pointed out, if you have backtracking enabled, you are definitely going to allow more power to the parser. And we are interested definitely in polynomial time parsers, which not only polynomial time, but those which do not require any backtracking. And therefore, our parsers have limited capability, right? But it can be increased with backtracking. Yeah, Venkat, go ahead.
sir, but when we have an ambiguous grammar, don't we have two or more parse trees corresponding to a single string? So
That is
how
correct.
can even backtracking help in that case, because there are two possible parse trees?
Okay, so when you have
Won't it report any one of the possible parse trees? Because the backtracking one stops as soon as it matches any of the possibilities, right? So
Huh.
it will report any one of the possibilities.
Okay, fine.
I guess that might be the case.
Yeah, so if at all it so happens that even with backtracking you are getting multiple parse trees, that means that the language is ambiguous. We are saying that if the language is unambiguous and the grammar happens to be ambiguous, but you are using a parser which does backtracking, it is guaranteed that eventually it will get the correct answer. Okay, so that okay, unambiguous. Okay, so I think we have answered all of this. Let's move ahead. Good. So this is the kind of discussion that we expect in this course. But anyway, so let's move ahead. Which tokens are returned by this Lex-like generator? By the way, how many of you found internet useful? Just for my understanding. I mean, it is allowed, so you can write that it was useful or not useful or something.
I found the slides useful. Not the...
Yeah, slides were anyway allowed. That would have. Book was useful. Okay. 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 So the choice of the questions was probably reasonable. I should also mention that a lot of. Okay. Good. I should also mention that a lot of the questions were also kind of designed by our TAs. And in my opinion, they did a good job of covering the material as well as coming up with reasonable questions. Okay, so let's move ahead. Which tokens are written by this Lex-like grammar? So this is a little easy question, but by adding these different options, I kind of made it a little complicated. But essentially what happens is that you have to have this. Okay, so let me search for that. Okay, y star x star. Yeah, so the answer is probably if and if, but let me just confirm that. So y star x star is covering this part, that followed by z is this part. And that covers, since we are talking about lex-like generator, that means that the longest string gets matched, right? And then the other xyz gets matched by if once again, right? So that is because of this y star x star followed by z. So if is the two tokens which are going to get returned if we follow this particular pattern. We can try applying other patterns, but yeah, this was a little hardworking thing because you had to apply different patterns and see if that matches. And so for example, just take the, let's say, then example. So if we try to match y, this was the y part first, and then for matching the second y in the string, you will have to match this last y. That means that x and z are not there at all, right? So that will match only the first part, that is the first two y's, right? And then you require two more additional thens to match, or even otherwise you will require, okay, so let's see that since this are starting with x, whether any of these will match x, then z comes, so that is okay, x oh, I see, there is x, so that becomes a problem, so you cannot match with else, and so on. So essentially you are going to require three matches for any of these. And as was also evident, if at all you would like to return only two tokens because of the longest match, therefore that should be considered. So that else, if and then were kind of possibilities, and if you try to match else and then that will not match. Only the if was matching, and therefore that is what gets returned from here. Okay, any questions on this one? All right, so let's move ahead. Okay, okay, this was the discussion point, so let's worry about this one. So I hope it was not difficult to imagine this being parsed by the lexical analyzer. The running time complexity here, running hyphen time, so that will be treated as minus, or yeah, order is okay. This could be a function call, or yeah, essentially a function call. Then n star n is okay. N factorial. So this is where the discussion might come out, that not of an expression, whether that can be considered as so that is a valid thing, but whether not of closing parenthesis will turn out to be valid or not. But as far as yeah, as far as the opening and closing parenthesis is concerned, that will not be part of the lexical analyzer, and therefore not of something, so not needs to be returned as a single operator. But there is a small issue here, and that is with respect to the dot which is there at the end. So if you have a function call which is returning a structure followed by dot and followed by something else, right? So that is a valid expression. However, yeah, go ahead.
Sir, but why are we worried about the parsing here? Like, we just have to find the lexical error, right?
No, I think so. I am talking about also the parsing. The reason being that there are some things which have to be done in the parsing, and therefore it should not be there in the lexical analyzer. For example, one might say that I'll design a lexical analyzer which will be able to catch the error of this factorial followed by closing parenthesis, right? But that is not something which is going to be possible in a general lexical analyzer like C, and therefore we have to make sure that not is interpreted as an operator independent of what is coming after it. right? If you want to focus only on this particular error, then you are going to miss out on what the expression followed by not is going to be. And therefore you cannot move it to the lexical analyzer in a general C-like grammar. The dot part is a little tricky because there are two ways in which dot can be interpreted. One is the floating point number, in which case the whole floating point number will be treated, will be considered, will be identified by the lexical analyzer, and this particular expression definitely does not match the floating point numbers, right? For example, I can say 2 dot, that is a valid number. Since this is or O opening parenthesis something closing parenthesis, so that is not a valid real expression, real number. But for the structures which is written by a function, you can use this mechanism, but then the structures do have something on the right hand side, right? Now what is there on the right hand side? Can this be identified by a lexical analyzer? A regular expression is insufficient in this case because the type expression corresponding to how many structures might be there inside and so on, that cannot be identified using, I mean, specifically for that you can do, but since the structures and their inherent internal structures and so on internally in it is actually user dependent, right? And therefore we cannot pinpoint that this is going to be something which can be always identified using the lexical analysis. And therefore we'll have to return only the dot from the lexical analyzer and take care of it, take care of whether there exists some expression beyond it in the parsing stage. And therefore this also cannot be identified by the lexical analyzer in general. Does that seem reasonable? Any questions on this part? Because this argument,
what about option C?
Sorry, what?
What about option C?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I'm going to go to each of the options. I'll discuss that. The reason why I'm focusing on this one is that sometimes we feel that that dot, since there is nothing followed by it, it should be doable in the lexical analysis, but that is not the case. Similarly, not followed by closing parenthesis can be doable in lexical analysis specifically, but it cannot be done in general. So that's what my point is. Okay, doesn't this question depend on how strict your lexer is? Some less strict lexer may let this go through to the parser. That is fine, but I think, so I actually thought about exactly the same thing when I was talking about it, and therefore I added this as discussed in class just to save myself from this thing. That we have to talk about, I mean, you can do everything in the parsing stage, right? So that argument can be given, but we are saying that as much as possible should be done in the lexical analysis, but it should be in a generic setting. It should be applicable to all possible things. For example, if it's a real number or not, this should be doable in the lexical analysis part, although you can push it to the parsing stage. All right, so S, then hyphen greater than is a pointer expression, so that is okay. 0 or a semicolon, that part is fine. So all of this is okay, except that somebody might say that, oh, why isn't this, I mean, after pointer, I need to have some sort of a field and I cannot allow a constant. But again, that needs to be decided by the parser. You can have an arbitrary expression there, right? And therefore this cannot be identified by a lexical analyzer, right? So therefore this is also not an error. There is some question here. We discussed in class to ignore bad characters. What are the bad characters? Sorry, I didn't understand. Yeah, if there are bad characters like at, then those can be ignored by the, those can not ignored, but those need to be given error for in the lexical analysis. I thought we discussed those also.
Yes, sir,
So
we did.
in the
So we
lab,
discussed like we could ignore those characters and just move forward in the lecture.
I think what, I don't know, I don't remember the context, but I think we, when I had asked you what are the kind of programs where lexical analyzer can give an error, I thought we discussed about all these at, and there was some, yeah, I think it is there on the slides also.
So
But
I
what
think
we
he's
said,
referring to that error recovery in the panic mode, recovery mode.
correct. So if we have specifically talking about yak, if we want to get into the errors which you don't want to take care of in the lexical analysis stage, then you can do it in the parsing stage. That part is okay. In that case, you will have to ignore the errors from the lexical analysis. But we are talking about in general. I mean, this was similar to what we have. I thought we have discussed it in the same manner. So I would say that we should be able to give error in the lexical analysis for all of these.
So, but the question says as discussed in class. Right?
So I thought we discussed that in class only.
So we did. I thought.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So, but our lecture passes this. It's the parser that gives the error. So you are talking about. Yes, so our parser will give the error in both of these, A as well as B. The parser will give the error. The lexer cannot give the error. That is the question. The lexer should not be giving an error because in general it won't be able to parse it. That is the at the end of the lecture, I guess we discussed it. We discussed dollar and at. Yeah, that is good. Did we discuss specific lex implementation? We didn't discuss a specific lex implementation. We were more thinking on the lines of that whether a lexical analyzer will be able to give an error, considering that this is possible to be done for all possible situations. So if it can be recognized by a lexer, we should give an error into the lexical analysis early on. Even the key event was different. Yeah. Rudra, go ahead. Yeah.
Explain again that how does Lex and Yak work together? Like first Lex is called or like YY Lex is called together with YY parse only.
The after main, whatever you do is going to get called. So from main we typically call YY parse, and from YY parse internally it is going to call YY Lex whenever it needs the next kind of token. Right? So it is going to be YY parse who is going to keep calling YY Lex whenever it needs the token.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, and if your language is simple enough, which can be recognized by a regular expression, then you don't need YY parse. I mean the parser at all. From the lex file itself, you can in the third part of the lex .l file, you can write main. From there, you can call YY Lex. Right, so that is also okay. Okay, let's come to the third one. So double of this would float in water. So all of this is fine. You will not get any error even for double or even for float. Comma will not give an error as discussed in section 3.1.4, right? Followed by a dot. So what is the take by students on this one?
Sir, the regex would try to match the max string. So first it would match 3.1, then 0.4, and then just the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it should not give an error.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But like the answer key was different. So yeah.
Okay, so the way I thought about it is that it will try to give an error here, and that's why I marked it as an error, but let's see. So you are saying that it will try to match the maximum, so it will match 3.1, and whether that dot is going to appear or not, that is going to be decided by the parser. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. This has a similar argument with respect to what we had in order parenthesis followed by dot. In this case, although it is the constant which is appearing, this cannot be recognized by a regular expression, because in the presence of parser, this should be offloaded to the parser. The regular expression will just say that this is 3.1 and then leave it to the parser to figure out. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Okay, so we'll change that answer. Good. At Anderson should be an error. Sorry, could you speak louder? Both of these should not trigger an, this sorry exclamation should not trigger an error. Could you speak louder? Question mark will also not trigger an error because question mark colon is a valid syntax. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Good.
Sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to ask, like, as discussed in class, let's say, how do we exactly say that that we did this according to some implementation? Because I don't think there was a specific implementation we had. So if you see, kind of everything is going to be passed, right? Because our lexical analyzer only gave error for unclosed comments, right? Because it tried to match it and reached end of file. Apart from that, it kind of passed everything. So I just wanted to ask, and even we ignored all the characters which we couldn't read, right? Like at. So can you just I am unable to understand which implementation should we go about while doing these kind of questions first of all, and if there is a standard, can you just explain that? Because even in the TA's implementation, we are parsing, I think, all of these strings.
That is true. Yeah, a specific implementation that
all of the TA's implementation for the lab. So I was and we kind of did that. So none of the answers match for that. So that's why this is also a question that was, because none of the answers matched because we only gave error for unclosed comments. So yeah, can you just tell me that, sir, please?
Sure, I'll do that. So many of our implementations do not really try to capture those errors. However, whenever there were unknown characters, definitely we discussed about giving errors in the lexical analysis stage, although our implementation that we have had may not adhere to this, right? So our implementations were more like, if it is unknown, just return it to the parser and let the parser take care of that, right? So that is what we did. However, this question was specific to a discussion that we had in the class, which said that we have to have, whenever there are unknown characters and so on, whatever is possible to be done by the lexical analyzer, that we should give error. So as one of you, somebody has mentioned, I think Deepesh has mentioned about this $ and at characters. So that discussion I thought we had in the class. So as far as that is concerned, so I'm definitely referring to that part.
Yeah. Yes, that I recognize, that I remember that discussion. I just that's that point I got, I asked that point because since there are contradicting implementations or contradicting explanations of what an Lexer error is, I just wanted to ask what the standard is, what should we go about? Because okay, apart from the at Anderson, sir, I think both of the others will only give syntax error in the parser, right? I think even the basic it would just parse, right?
Yeah, that is what we are deciding now. Yeah, 3.1.4
yes,
is
sir?
not a lexical analysis error. That is what we have decided now. I had thought about it to be an error earlier, so I had marked that as one of the options to be marked as erroneous. But with your discussion, it is clear that it should not be marked as an error in the Lexer. So the only option which is going to be lexical analysis error is going to be D, at Anderson. Okay. Okay, there is, in the expression lecture, we gave error for each unknown expression. Each unknown character, you mean? Okay. Yeah, that is correct. But in the first lecture, we did not. Okay, now I'm not recalling what all. First lecture, we did not give an error for the. So if you are talking about the lab lecture that we did for Lexiac, we did not give an error for arbitrary characters. Although that is something which is definitely implementation dependent. We would like to give error as early as possible. right? But that we decided to offload that to the parser. Okay, Rudra has given the link to a.l where we said dot is unknown character. Okay, so there is some error which we have given for all other this thing. Okay, so that seems to be okay. Okay, but yeah, so more importantly, the point here is that the question was about can lexical analyzer give an error in this for a general setting, and I think we'll stick to at Anderson being the erroneous part. All others are reasonable. Okay, so we'll move ahead from here. Following program in CTEP having dynamic scoping pass by value result mechanism. So what is the output of this code? Nine. Okay. Anybody has any issues against 9? If not, we'll move ahead because I think only 15 minutes remaining. You got 7. Answer given was 40. Oh, is it? Okay, that's a mistake if it is given as 40. But maybe this was the case or the other question. Anyway, so I'll check that. The answer should be, okay, let's confirm that. Fun a of 0 passed by value result. So a of 0 is 1. So x becomes 1, x gets incremented to 2. A of 2, this a is the dynamic scoping, and therefore this will refer to this array, and a of 2 will refer to this, so that will become 5. So now, so at this stage, this array from main is still 1 to 5, right? Because this value result, so it has not been added. After this statement, when the function ends, the value of x, which is 2, is updated in a of 0 because of the value result thing, and therefore it will become 2 to 5, and therefore the answer should be 9. Right? So yeah, that seems correct. But if it was marked as 40, then I'll check if so that should definitely be 9. Okay. Using static scoping, you will get 7. Yeah, because that update needs to go to the caller. Okay, so I'll update that if it is 40, not a problem. Let's move ahead. This was a less controversial question. Okay, this was another. So number of states which contain shift reduce or reduce reduce conflict in the CLR1 parser. So what was your answer here? So I think Nishchit wrote to me that A and B, small a and small b, are both in the follow of capital A and capital B because of this rule. And since both are nullable, therefore there will be reduce conflicts there. So that part seems to be okay. I think I have, okay, so you guys, okay, Nishchit didn't write. So maybe one of you, I forgot who wrote it to me. But anyway, so maybe Sarthak wrote it to me. So 1, yeah, correct. So 1 is the answer. So that definitely, so I think the answer that is marked originally is 0. That is, there are no such states. It's parsable, but that is definitely not the case. It is not parsable with this CLR1 parser. So there should be at least one state. I don't know if there are other shift reduce conflicts. I'll confirm that, but definitely.
So can you explain again what the argument is?
The argument is that this capital A and capital B, both of them have follow of both A and B, small a and small b, right? And both of them are nullable. So by looking at the next symbol as small a, small b, will you be able to make a decision whether to use A deriving epsilon or B deriving epsilon? Right? So definitely there is reduce conflict. I'll check if there is shift reduce conflict. But if you guys did not find it, most probably there isn't any shift reduce conflict. Okay, many of you say I got 0 because Yak passes it without any conflict. Okay.
So, but like that reduce conflict to be there, you need to have A B and B A dot in the same states, right? Is that
Okay, I have
like
not, yeah, I must say that I have not built the parser, the parsing table yet. I'll construct that and share it with you. If there is any problem, then you can always come back to me. Not a problem. But to me, it appears that small a, small b should be in the follow. And therefore, whether to apply a deriving epsilon or b deriving epsilon, this problem should come. That is what I think. That problem should come.
so? Like I'm not sure about how epsilon reductions will work, but like for that, I mean that problem might come, but for that we need to have both of them in some same state, right? We cannot. Can we directly say that that will be a problem?
No. We have to build the go-to table, the state transition diagram, and from there we have to build the parsing table. That is correct. So if that is not occurring there, then there won't be any reduce conflict. That is correct. So if you have done it properly and you did not find the reduce conflict, our answers will match. Don't worry about that. Oh, you guys are saying that in LALR there is no conflict. But then if in LALR there is no conflict, CLR should also not get any conflict. SLR1 grammar, but I'm not sure about CLR1. Okay, I'll check that. I'll share the table, etc. with you so that you can confirm. Okay. All right. So some of you are saying 0, some of you are saying 1. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to the next question. This was again relatively easy. E as the start symbol. So here star and plus have the same priority. Just that their associativity is different, but and minus has the higher precedence, right? So I think this answer should be the one. Right? So plus and star should have the same precedence, and minus has, oh sorry, minus has the higher precedence. So it should be which one? This one, right? So minus has the higher precedence over plus and star, which have the same precedence. Okay, anybody got any other comments on this one? Okay, I think there is a lot of discussion on that question. A deriving dot, B deriving dot are in items. This is the problem in SLR, not in CLR. Refer solution question 465 in Unban's compiler's book. It shows that there will be a reduce conflict. Okay, that question is for SLR and not CLR. Lookaheads are different for them, so no conflict, I suppose. Yeah, but same arguments can be applied. Okay, relax, guys. You don't have to fight for this reason. I'll give you the solution, whatever it is, and you will get the chance of commenting on it. Right? So don't worry. I mean, of course, this discussion is welcome, but as long as you don't fight, it's okay. All right, so we'll go to the next one, 9th question. Yeah, so this is also again over the what we have. SLR1 might have lower number of states than CLR1, and SLR1 and LLR1 will have the same number of states. So that is X equals Z and X less than equal to Y, right? So the second answer. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, but when we are merging the states in LALR, like if there is some conflict and we don't merge, then it doesn't necessarily mean that the number of states will be equal to SLR1, right?
That is correct. But then we are not looking at whether it is creating a conflict or not in LALR. As far as LALR theory says, it just says that don't look at the look ahead, merge the states which have the same kind of items. So that is the theory. And there, if there is a conflict occurring, then we say that LALR, it is the grammar is not LALR1. That's it.
Okay, sir.
Any other concerns here? So I think towards the end of that LLR, we discussed about this part where we said that there are options available more in the practical setting where you might decide not to merge these if it is causing reduce or reduce conflict. Right? So that is more like a practical implementation. But yeah, as far as theory is concerned, LLR is going to merge the states without looking at the look. Okay, so then let's move ahead to the next one. Okay, LL1 parsing table. Okay, so this P of X, yeah, so one of the things that we have to remember is that on X following something, we have to have a production which is going to be deriving for that non-terminal, right? And therefore, only first, second, fourth and fifth are going to be possible answers, right? Within that, whatever is deriving from n, that is going to be the answer. So within that, first, second, so fourth is ruled out, and then fifth, right? So that is, these are the first, second and fifth. One of these has to be the answer. But I think there is epsilon transition, and therefore you might have a conflict there. So is fifth the answer, or did you get something else? Oh, first is the answer. Oh, is it? Okay, let me check. N deriving epsilon is the answer. Oh, n on the look on the symbol dollar, not star. Okay, that's fine. But is okay, n deriving epsilon. Okay, on star you will move to n deriving star x. That is correct. Yeah, so that should not be there. So n deriving epsilon. Yeah, this should not be there at all, and therefore this should also not be there. Makes sense. Okay, the first one. All right, so let's move ahead from here. Yeah, this was the issue. And there were answers which you said are common, like this one, second one, and fourth one. Yeah, but yeah, so which one is the answer here?
Yeah, I'm not able to find any of the options as a possible answer.
Oh, none of the answers match, is it?
I wasn't able to find any answer.
Oh, I see.
I guess it should be n
So
reverse
what does-
instead of n.
Huh? Sorry, what? Rudra?
It should be n reverse instead of n.
Yes, sir, because it generates like in the reverse order, right? Like x, y, x, and y, y, y. So
Mhm.
what you'll get on the left, you'll get the reverse of it on the right.
Sir, if you think k as -1, it works kind of. Like
What
that was the only sensible option actually.
K as -1.
Yeah, -1 is kind of reversing, right?
Oh, I see.
It's not.
Okay, so let me.
So, but the language.
No
would
other
not
option
be the
makes even
same.
sense, to be very honest.
Okay. Are there people? So who all did not find any of the answers matching? Large number of you. Okay, so let me then go back and check this. That there are. I'm assuming that you have replaced this capital Y with small y, and
Yes, sir, even after
despite
that, we are not able to
despite
find
that,
any
it is not occurring. Okay, I'll check that. I'll check this. Sure. And if that is the case, then we'll have to give marks to everybody, right? Even if you have marked an answer, we'll have to give marks to it. Okay, I'll check this. 12th question. Size of the follow of z minus follow of y. Follow of y is xy and follow of Z is XY dollar. So the answer should be 1. Is that what it is? Anybody has any comments on that? Okay.
I think it will be
We'll move
1.
ahead. 1. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I also think. Okay. I'll check that. All right. So then this was about the left recursion, which was here, and you had to just remove that left recursion and you would have gotten one of these answers. But I don't know, there could be other ways. Without removing left recursion, you could have gotten the similarity by actually looking at some of the strings that get generated and so on. So I don't remember the answer to this, but do people have any issues with respect to answer to this?
So I just have one comment on the questions
Yeah.
options.
Yeah,
And
go
you
ahead.
you can easily eliminate the remaining 3 options if you just look at that. There's only one option which accommodates all the terminals. Other 3 don't have, like, they have one missing terminal. So
Oh,
you
is
obviously
it?
can
What is
miss.
that? So T and U and V. Oh, I see. Oh man. Okay. So this was a giveaway question. Okay, okay. I got it. So
I
this
realized
was
that
that.
after spending a lot of time, but yeah.
Okay, okay. I see. So the first one is the answer. Is that what you are saying?
Yes,
No,
sir.
actually, TU. Okay. Oh, I see. No, actually, you do have UVT here, and oh, there is no T here, so that is missed out. But you do
Yeah,
have.
sorry. First one was infinite loop. Yeah, sorry. I forgot
Okay,
that.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think V is missing from here. That is correct. So these two options are ruled out. So essentially, first and the fourth ones are the only options. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I missed that. Okay. Let me see if there are any. There is no V in 3. Yeah, that is correct. First one is infinite loop. Epsilon also should. Okay. All right. So we have kind of exceeded the time and we have covered 13 questions. So we'll discuss more maybe in the next class. I wanted to, anyway, so we'll discuss more in the next class. And meanwhile, if I have evaluated all of this and changed the answers, I'll post the answers also for only the difficult ones, I mean, wherever there was a contradiction. And you will be able to see the answers and we can have a discussion further. All right. See you then. Can you go back to the question with answer 9? Dynamic scoping one. Okay, I'll do that. Let me. Dynamic scoping was okay. Third, no. Fourth, no. Fifth, no. Sixth. Yeah. So, yeah, tell me, Anirudh, do you have a question? So, Anirudh, yeah.
We're still saying that n goes to a next question.
Okay. Okay, let me reshare the screen because I had closed that window, but do that. Okay. So, what is the question now, Anirudh? So, Anirudh, you are there? The conditions of the question were dynamic scoping and pass by value. We said pass by value result.
So that was one more question.
Meaning? There was another question of pass by name, I think. The other question was about pass by name. This one was pass by value result. Oh, okay. You want to discuss about the other question? Yeah, since many people have left, maybe we'll do that in the next class. Whatever are the remaining 7-8 questions, we'll do that in the next class. Is that okay?
Sorry, if you don't mind, can you just discuss a possibility for that KMP question? Because I don't think many people differ on that, so they wouldn't like to discuss that in the next class. But I had a doubt regarding that. In the
Okay.
KMP question.
Okay, let me see where it is. This is not this one.
This one, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
So even I got the answer to be 7, it's like 1122, something like that. But sir, I looked at the slides, and what we have essentially done is that we have set that error correction to s equals to f of s, right? So because over here it is written that the pattern is indexed from 1 to 8, I actually added 1 to each of these 7 values, and I got 15.
Oh, I see. I see.
So I don't know, like exercise that, like I was confused between 7 and 15, but because like you had like written down like note that the pattern is indexed, I wrote 15 and I got it incorrect. So like if you can just like maybe provide both the answers as correct or something.
Okay. Are there other people who have given 15 as the answer?
So not many. Like most of them have written 7 only, but okay, some have. Okay. Like that's why I asked you to discuss right now, because I don't know many people who have written this as
okay. 15. Okay, I'll.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are people.
Okay, all right. So I think that can be considered. That should not be a problem. So adding one to everybody, that should not be a problem.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other things?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 will be correct, but
yeah,
we'll probably give.
Like to provide 2 correct answers, not 1.
Okay, how to check if a language is inherently ambiguous? Yeah, so that answer I don't know. How to find out if
so that is undecidable, right? You cannot do that. Checking ambiguity of a language is an undecidable problem.
Okay, I am not recalling this, but yeah, if Cairo says maybe it is, yeah, if it is undecidable, then it should be.
I remember because it was in the first chapter of that ALSU book.
Okay, good. Failure position, is it position or length of common prefix? Is it the position or length of common prefix? It is the length of the common prefix.
I'm saying it actually kind of depends on how you implement the KMP algorithm, right? Like the essence is obviously that the length of the prefix of the pattern that is already matching. So you set that to s equals to f of s. But like it also like if you're using only length, what you can do is you can simply make it s plus equals to f of s. But like the way we have implemented is that we have set it equal to f of s. So if it is indexed to like let's say it was indexed from 1000, then we would have to like make it s equals to f of s.
That is
but if it is indexed from 0, then both are equivalent. Let's say s equals to f of s or s plus equals to f of s.
Yeah, that seems fine. So both these position and length are, as far as our discussion is concerned, it's going to be synonymous. I mean, the position is anyway going to be decided by the length of the common prefix. Derive 2 sentential forms. Ravi, what were you talking in the context of what?
Oh, he's talking about that inherently ambiguous, maybe.
No, it's a little tricky. I mean, see, for this getting to 2 sentential forms, you will need the string. Right, and how many strings will you try? So that is kind of not, so there doesn't seem to be any specific way of doing, and if Cairo has seen that it is undecidable, then I think we'll follow that. All right, we'll stop here. You will also have another class and maybe lunch. See you then. Bye.